All right, now finally we are completing this series with the South Metro Ultimate Tier List. Now, the South Metro, this is where Minnesotans go to buy a brand new house. This is where they go to buy a house, this is where they go to buy a boat, or both. And almost nobody from out of state looks at it because all of the articles online are telling them to look in the West Metro. So today I'm going to be ranking 11 South Metro suburbs on a full S through F tier list. The internet has tier listed sandwiches, they have tier listed Gatorade flavors, even tier listed Batmans. So, suburb tier lists were inevitable. And I think there are four sort of tier names, if you will. S is pack the truck, A is strong yes, B is, well, it depends on you, and C is, I would drive through it first. There's also a D tier and an F tier, and we'll talk more about those later on in the video. They're empty right now, but whether they stay empty is between the South Metro and me, and if any of them gets on their bad side, they're moving down. All right, now, of course, these are my opinions. These are not a truth with a capital T. I tour homes in these communities, I walk the basements, I've sat in the traffic, and if your suburb lands on somewhere where you don't like, the comment section is right there. And I do read every single one of them, and I do respond to most. One ground rule though, I'm ranking these for a family that's relocating here or moving up, so somewhere in the 350 to 700K range. If you're a 24-year-old that's buying your first condo, your tier list is gonna look different, and that's just, honestly, it's a completely different video. So, all right, let's go. First up is Bloomington. Now, Bloomington is the suburb that everyone outside of Minnesota has technically heard of because it's home to the Mall of America, which you will visit twice. Once when you move here and once when your family flies in to come visit you. It's also one of the 5 biggest cities in Minnesota, which surprises everyone, including people who live in Bloomington. Here's the scoop about Bloomington. It's 15 minutes from downtown, 10 minutes from the airport, and it has Highland Lake Park Reserve on the west side, which is one of the best park metro systems in the metro. Oh, and it's also complete with a frickin' ski jump, which you can watch people launch themselves off of intentionally for free, which never stops being entertaining. The catch, most of the housing is anywhere from 50 to 70 years old, so you're probably buying a Rambler that needs a kitchen or needs some other work throughout the house, maybe some updated mechanicals, so on and so forth. And the school districts, in terms of general ratings, do run behind some of the districts to the south. Now, the median home price sits in the mid 300s, and homes there, they are moving fast and furious. If they're priced well, they're selling in a weekend for sure. So it's competitive, and that's because just there's a lot of people that are shopping there. Bloomington is for the buyer that they value location over square footage, and they're willing to renovate the house the way that they want. In that sense, it depends on you, and that's a B. Next up, Richfield. Now, Richfield might be the most walkable, most convenient suburb in the entire metro. It's also 7 square miles total. So you can literally jog across the whole city before your coffee even gets cold. Now, I feel like in Richfield, every house was built in 1954. I don't know what's going on there, but they were really productive that year. And they're all about 1,100 square feet. And the lots are close enough together that you can hear your neighbors season their hot dish at night. That sounds worse, but I literally meant it as that saying. Best Buy's world headquarters is in Richfield too, which means somewhere in Richfield lives the person who decided you'd be offered a home warranty at every checkout in America. I just want to talk. I love Richfield. First-time homebuyers love Richfield. The list price sits around the low 300s, which barely exists anymore this close to the city metro. Honestly, this list is for families that are moving up or that are relocating. And for that buyer, Richfield's kind of a hard sell. You're gonna outgrow that house in 4 years, and there's no room to add on, and depending on the block, you may be under a flight path because it's so close to the airport. Now, some people find the Plains charming, but anecdotally, I think most people find the Plains charming for like a week, and then they either start ignoring it or they get annoyed by it. Richfield is for the buyer whose furniture just fits all in one truck, not for the family with 2 kids and a golden retriever. Drive through it first and bring a tape measure. That's a C. Sorry, Richfield people, I already know. Comments are open. Feel free to disagree with me. Next up, Eagan. Now, Eagan used to be the onion capital of the United States. Yeah, that's not a joke. The entire city literally grew onions. They pivoted to being a suburb, and hey, going well. Today, Eagan is probably the most convenient place to live in the entire metro, and the hardest one to describe at a party because, well, it's 20 minutes to Minneapolis, it's 20 minutes to St. Paul, 10 to the airport, and if your household has one job downtown and one job in South Metro, well then Eagan is the mathematical answer. And honestly, it's like quietly loaded. Lebanon Hills is like 2,000 acres of trails and lakes that the West Metro people don't even know exist, y'all. Heck, the Vikings liked Eagan so much that they built their entire headquarters there. And they had every suburb in Minnesota to choose from. Now, the medians have been sitting in the high 300s, and for what you get, that's one of the best value plays in the entire metro. Now, the knock, I guess you would say, is that Eagan really doesn't have a downtown. There's no like main street, there's no like lake with restaurants on it. You drive to your life. And if that bothers you, you're gonna feel it for sure, but if it doesn't, Eagan might be the smartest purchase on the list. Strong yes, that's an A. The onion thing alone was worth a full letter upgrade. Burnsville, you and I need to talk. Now, Burnsville has Buck Hill, which is a ski hill sitting in a freeway ditch off of 35W, and that ski hill, to its credit, produced Lindsey Vonn, an Olympic gold medalist that learned to ski next to an interstate. This is probably the most Minnesota sentence that I will say in that video. Now, Burnsville's story is complicated. It was the South Metro suburb in the 80s and 90s. And then Lakeville happened, and Apple Valley happened, and everything grew around it. And Burnsville Center went from the crown jewel of the South Metro to a very large, climate-controlled place to think. There's real opportunity in that the housing is more affordable than its neighbors, and the River Bluff neighborhoods on the north end are like seriously legit. And there is some significant redevelopment money that is moving into the city. Take that for what you will. But if you're relocating from out of state and you get one house hunting weekend, Burnsville is most likely the suburb to look different block to block. Now, some pockets will surprise you in a good way, and some won't. This is exactly what the drive-through tier exists for, and that's a C, with a real chance of climbing this board in like 5 years. Lindsay, don't come after me. Speaking of, going after people, Apple Valley. Now, Apple Valley was named after Apple Valley, California, which is in a desert. So the name has never made sense in either state, and at this point, I respect the commitment. Apple Valley has the Minnesota Zoo, which means that you can have a season pass to see tigers 8 minutes from your driveway, which is like, heck yes, sign me up for that. And yet somehow people still lead with the schools when talking about Apple Valley. They lead with the school district because District 96 is one of the strongest districts in the state, and Apple Valley is the value entry point to get into that district. Now, home values average in the high 300s. That combination though, top tier district, under 400K, does not exist in the West Metro. You just won't find it there. The equivalent in the comparable West Metro, you would find that same house in, probably costing you 6 figures more. Now you're probably asking, what's catch? Because there is one. The trade-off is, well, charisma. Apple Valley is retail corridors, quiet neighborhoods, and youth sports. Nobody writes poetry about Cedar Avenue. But when a relocating family tells me that schools are the #1 filter and the budget is under 450K, this is one of the first places that I tell them. Strong yes, that's an A. Rosemount. Now, Rosemount is a rare suburb that's still, funny enough, actually has like that small town feel to it. There is an actual main street, which I love. There's a real hardware store, and every summer the whole town throws an Irish festival that commits to the bit completely. And around that little downtown, brand new construction is growing surprisingly really freaking fast. And I think that's both the appeal and the tension in the same way. Rosemount is growing fast, and list prices are sitting in the high 400s, driven by all of that new construction, and you're still in District 196. Now, also, the University of Minnesota owns about 5,000 acres of Rosemount, which in university terms is one extremely ambitious parking lot. Now, it's slowly becoming one of the biggest development projects in the state, which means the Rosemount you buy into is not going to be the same Rosemount 10 years from now. If you want new construction, strong schools, and a town that still feels like a small town, well then Rosemount definitely belongs on your short list, but if you do need to be close to downtown, it's a haul. So, depends on you. That's a B. Farmington. Now, Farmington is named after farms. Hey, did I tell you I'm smart and full of information? And the beautiful thing though about this is that you can still see them. It's on the edge of the metro. Past Farmington is just Minnesota. Here's why it's on this list at all. Farmington has become one of the most affordable new constructions in the South Metro. If your non-negotiable is a brand new house and your budget has a ceiling, Farmington is where the math is gonna work. And there's so many young families that are moving there in waves for exactly that reason. And you have an incredible community that is growing and becoming real. The trade-off though is that drive. If you work downtown, you're just gonna have to memorize every mile of that commute and get some good podcasts. And by January, it's gonna be your personality trait talking about the commute. For a remote worker or someone that's employed in the South Metro, well then that penalty mostly disappears. Farmington is for a buyer who says new house, period, and means it. That's a C for the relocating family with an asterisk the size of a 2-story foyer for the remote workers. Now let's talk about Shakopee. Shakopee is the entertainment capital of the metro. And I don't think it's close. Valley Fair, Canterbury, Mystic Lake, the new amphitheater that is built this summer. Every fall, tens of thousands of adults drive to Shakopee. They put on capes, they eat a turkey leg, and they yell huzzah at the Renaissance Festival. And honestly, I think that is just beautiful. At least it's sanctioned there. I do that in my neighborhood and I'm called a weirdo. Your kids will believe that you live in the greatest city in America until they turn about 14. It's also one of the fastest growing cities in Minnesota. It has grown faster than Highway 169 did. Now, if your life points north of the river at rush hour, hey, you're gonna feel that. And I'd rather tell you that now than after closing. Now, the value is definitely real. You get more house per dollar than almost anywhere on this board, and the job base in the city itself is very strong. So plenty of people who live in Shakopee also work in Shakopee, and that will change the entire equation for you. Shakopee is for the buyer that's maximizing top dollar, whose life doesn't cross the river every morning. So that's a depends on you. That's a B. Whether you work north or south of the river, that's really gonna make or break the difference for you. All right, Savage. Savage is probably the most aggressively named city in America, and its cul-de-sacs and youth soccer are as far as the eye can see. Now, the name comes from a man who owned a horse named Dan Patch, the fastest horse alive in 1906. Now, Dan Patch was so famous, he had his own railroad line, #goals, his own cigars, definitely #goals, and a washing machine named after him. I'm good on that one. And a horse had better brand deals than most influencers. I'm not even kidding you. And the town has not let anyone forget it. Here's what Savage does for you today. It feeds into the Prior Lake Savage School District, one of the best in the South Metro, and at a lower buy-in than Prior Lake itself. It's a value door into a premium district. Nobody makes content about Savage. Nobody's fighting over it in Facebook groups. And that is why you're still gonna find deals there if you're budget conscious. The trade is that Savage has no center of gravity on its own. Similar to Burnsville. You'll grocery shop in one suburb, you'll eat dinner in another, and then you'll sleep in Savage. For a lot of families, that is a completely fine deal to make. Believe it or not, don't come after me. I'm giving it an A. Might be the sleeper pick of this entire video. Lakeville. Ugh. It goes on and on. Lakeville is what happens when a cornfield gets a Costco. 20 years ago, it was at the edge of the world. Today, it's the new construction capital of the South Metro. District 194 is definitely doing very well, and the summer festival is called Pano Prague, which is short for Panorama of Progress, which is the most 1967 thing I've ever heard of. And, they just have refused to change it for 60 years, which again, I respect it. Way to commit. Now, recent sale mediums run through the mid 400s and new construction are going to push that well into the 5 and 6s. But what you're buying is space. You get actual yards, neighborhoods where every house was built after your last phone, and the 3-car garage, which, a 3-car garage in Lakeville, it's not an upgrade. That's a birthright. Now, the knock, honestly, it's the sameness. If you want character and an old tree canopy and a house with a story, Lakeville ain't it. But for the relocating family that wants new, they want space, they want schools, Lakeville checks every box on the first pass. It's the suburb I show people when they say that they just want things to be easy. So for that reason, I'm going to give it an S, pack the truck, because there is a reason why it is expanding like crazy. Last one, and it's the one that I think people in the West Metro should be the most nervous about. Now, Prior Lake has a thing that almost no suburb has. It has an actual lake. Not a pond with ambitions. I mean, it is a real 1,300-acre lake with boat culture and lakefront restaurants and summer weekends that feel like a vacation that you didn't have to drive north for. The West Metro people call it the poor man's Lake Minnetonka. I'm going to disagree with that, and I say Prior Lake should also stand right next to Lake Minnetonka. In fact, Prior Lake, a tad bit cleaner than Lake Minnetonka, so take that for what you will. And you add the Wilds Golf Course with that same top-tier school district that it shares with Savage and the Mystic Lake Casino, which is either an amenity or a hazard, depending on your personality. Now, home values average in the low 500s, and the lakefront obviously goes beyond that. But here's the sentence that you really need to pay attention to. Prior Lake is the lake lifestyle that people move to the West Metro for, and at a number that doesn't start with a 7. I spend most of my time around Lake Minnetonka, and I know exactly what that lifestyle costs on my side of the metro. Prior Lake is the closest shortcut that I've found. The trade-offs are real, but small. It's a longer commute downtown, and inventory on the lake is certainly very thin. So you need patience or an advisor that watches it closely. That's an S. Pack the truck, y'all. All right, so that's the board. Prior Lake and Lakeville are sitting at the top with the S's. Savage at A. Nobody saw that coming. Richfield people are already typing, yep, I know, and D and F are still empty because I'm Minnesotan and I don't want to offend anybody. I'm just going to talk about you behind your back. If you're moving to Minnesota, and this has raised more questions than answers, that's normal, and it's kind of the point. A tier list can tell you which suburb deserves your weekend. I can't tell you, though, which one is yours. That part takes a conversation about your life, your commute, your kids, what your Saturday morning needs to look like for you. And that's why you need to book a call with me down below. I do this every week from families that are moving from California, Texas, Utah, Colorado, and it's my favorite part of the job. Now, drop your own rankings in the comments below. I'm curious. Defend your suburb. Tell me I'm wrong. And also, I know haven't talked about so many of the other suburbs. I didn't realize there was going to be so many suburbs when I started this series, but let me know down below what suburbs I missed and if there's any other places that you want me to talk about. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.